Hey YouTube, welcome back to Tinker Tools. Tonight we're going to be talking about the fairly new M12 fuel jigsaw. We're going to be talking about the pros and cons, so let's get into all of that on Tinker with Tools. I've had the M12 fuel jigsaw for about a month and a half at this point. This is not only the first 12-volt jigsaw I've ever owned, but it is going to be the first barrel grip jigsaw that I've ever had. Most recently, I've been using this M18 fuel D-handle style jigsaw. D-handle is the one I grew up using, and so it was the one I was more comfortable with, but when I saw more and more people using barrel grip, I started to wonder if that would be something that I liked. So when M12 decided to release their new fuel jigsaw as a barrel grip, it kind of became an obvious choice for me to go ahead and try and see what all the rage was about. Now tonight we are going to be comparing and contrasting these two jigsaws. This is a more powerful jigsaw, so we're not going to be doing drag races necessarily to show you the power difference between these tools, but we are going to compare and contrast how they work. I'm going to go ahead and give you my experience with them, and then at the end of it all, I'll give you a recommendation for which one I would buy, both considering the 18 volt and the 12 volt, as well as whether I like D-handle or barrel grip better, because I think that's important here. But first, let's go ahead and run through the features of the M12 fuel. Now, previously, Milwaukee had an M12 jigsaw, but it was not part of their fuel lineup. That's to say that it was an older model that did not have as many premium features, in my opinion, as what they have with the new fuel jigsaw. When they announced this at their pipeline event, I was definitely intrigued at how nice and smooth it looked for being a 12-volt tool. It seemed to have plenty of power and a lot of premium features. Now, when it comes to barrel grip jigsaw, what exactly are we talking about? Well, barrel grip jigsaws, you are just going to hold around the body of the tool like that, and they are going to have a switch instead of a trigger like what you're going to be getting from there. Now, what that means is it is on or off. There is not going to be a variable speed trigger, but what you get instead is up here you do have a dial that is going to have an A for an auto setting and then all the way up to 5, so you can control and modulate the speed that way and give yourself some customization. Previously on tools, I haven't really cared for an auto setting because it kind of did whatever it felt like it should. But so far on this tool, it actually seems to be pretty nice. So far, I haven't minded not having a trigger on the tool, but it is something to consider when you're choosing between these tools, because this one is going to be that switch only with the variable speed dial. Now, other features you do get is this does have a variable orbital mode, where you're going to have 0 with no orbital action, where the blade is just going to be going straight up and down, and then you're going to have up to 4 on the orbital setting, which is then going to push the blade forward almost in a motion and making a more aggressive cut. Being able to control that allows you to really dial in what type of cut you're using and for what type of material. That's one of the things that I think is really underappreciated with the jigsaw, is just how versatile they are based on what blade option you're doing. It allows you to cut a wide variety of different materials and really have a lot of different customization that you can do to make this tool work how you want for the application you have. Now, as we move up front, you do have a switch that can go ahead and turn on and off the light. That's something that the M18 fuel version does not have. You then also have the quick release, which is going to allow you to insert and then obviously release the different blades that you're going to put in there. This tool accepts all T-handle jigsaw blades, which is pretty universal at this point, and so you are able to kind of fit what you need in there. Now, moving around to this side, it does have a blower on it, which does an excellent job, in my opinion, of keeping your cut line clear so you can't see what you're cutting on. If it's something where you don't want it because you're going to be cutting towards yourself or something, you don't want it blowing on you, you can just go ahead and switch that off, and then it won't be using the blower at all. I have been running this tool predominantly on either a 2.5 or a 4 amp hour battery. Now, the 2.5 being their high output battery. That keeps it really nice and small, and it's been able to do all the cuts that I've asked it to do. It really is a nice, powerful little saw. It's going to work on all M12 batteries, but obviously, I think for more demanding tasks, you're going to want one of those better batteries to kind of be able to do that. Down here at the back, you are going to have the Allen wrench, which is necessary to be able to adjust the base plate of the saw. It is not a tool-free change though, so it is nice that they were able to store that tool in a nice secure place on there. The next thing that's going to come with it is going to be kind of the dust port that allows you to hook it up to a vacuum. Now this does just slide in there, and then it gives you kind of your common Milwaukee vacuum port. Now, because of the style of battery being sticking out the back side, they did have to make this longer, and so when you do attach that dust port, it does get to be kind of long, and that is something that I think you'll notice with this tool. Now, my use for the tool is much more traditional woodworking. I'm not a finished carpenter by any means, so in terms of like coping and things like that, it's not something I do a ton of. You can go ahead and fit this like many jigsaws with a coping foot. Overall, I've been highly impressed with the M12. Let's go ahead and talk about how it differs from the features on the M18 Fuel, but I should note that they also do make an M18 Fuel barrel grip jigsaw that is going to have a lot of the same feature set that what you're getting on this tool. The biggest difference is going to be in that one is going to have an ambidextrous switch, so you're going to be able to turn it on from either side, and then that one does not have a light and is going to be heavier. That tool comes in at around 4.6 pounds. This is actually coming in under 3.5 pounds as a tool only. Now, when it comes to the D-handle M18 Fuel jigsaw, obviously some of the biggest differences between that is you are going to have the variable speed trigger. You are going to be able to modulate when it goes and how much it goes. This doesn't have variable speed settings though. If you're making longer cuts, you can lock the trigger into the on position. Now, as I mentioned, this one does have an orbital setting too. This is going to have roughly the same blade change system, so not a whole lot that's different there. And then, as I mentioned, it also does have the dust blower that is going to allow you to kind of blow away the debris so you can see your cut line. But unlike the barrel grip, this does have a quick change to be able to change the different angles and everything that you have there. As I mentioned, the degrees or angles are going to be the same that you're going to get on there and the detents that it has, but you are able to do it without getting out the tool. When we start talking about performance, as I mentioned, the M18 is obviously going to be a more powerful saw when it comes to pure performance. I think if you wanted barrel grip on there, you could go to the M18 Fuel barrel grip jigsaw and obviously have that same level of performance. But this tool is actually going to be considerably lighter than this one, and so there are some trade-offs to the performance, I think. This one was able to do all of the cuts that we asked this saw to do. It was just clear that this saw was actually a bit more powerful and everything in the way that it cut. I did find, however, that with that power, you had to be the one to kind of modulate how fast and aggressive you were cutting, or else you could not necessarily get as automatically smooth a cut as what you were getting with the M12 Fuel. So in my opinion, for finer or more precision work, the power level of this one almost made it more agreeable with that, and being able to kind of set that dial and do the auto setting and all that, it really made it kind of nice on this tool. Now, it didn't blaze through cuts with the same speed, but it certainly didn't leave me wanting for a ton of performance necessarily as I was going ahead and using this tool. I did some cuts previously with 1.5" material, and they weren't necessarily super smooth with either saw, but this one was still able to go through and cut 2x material with it. I know a lot of times people, and especially in woodworking, will use a jigsaw to rough cut lumber because then you're not dealing with some of the potential for binding or kickback with a circular saw, for example, and you can get a nice long jigsaw blade so you can go through even thicker material with it. I think if you're trying to go through really thick, hard wood with this, you might want more of the power that you're going to be getting from this tool, but for the materials that I'm cutting most of the time, this tool was certainly enough for the power level. when it comes to the use of using either a barrel grip or a D handle, I honestly have been team D handle for the majority of my life because, like I said, this is what I grew up with. Coming to the barrel grip, there's a bit of an acclimation period in terms of getting used to it, but I find that in making really precise controlled cuts, I almost like the control more for doing those cuts. So if all I'm using it for is to rough cut material, it might be more comfortable for someone to use. I found this one to be the one that I actually like using more. I do like both of these, but if I was going to be buying them again from scratch, probably would end up with the barrel grip just because of how I liked it for the work that I do. But I kind of liken using a barrel grip jigsaw to having grown up using 7 1/4 blade right circular saws, and now the only circular saw I'll use is a blade left circular saw because I like the visibility and the control that I have and how easy it is to line up good, nice cuts with that blade left. This is kind of similar to that in that this was definitely more natural to me and it felt better, and this is the one that I gravitated towards. But if I'm being honest, this one now feels more natural to be able to get a good, precise cut. So now when it comes down to it, would I recommend someone go out and buy this M12 Fuel jigsaw? 100% yes. Over the past several years, M12 has continued to come out with different tools like an oscillating multi-tool, like a jigsaw, where you think their more natural home for a really powerful tool is going to be up on that M18. But what I've found with 12-volt oscillating multi-tool and now with this jigsaw is it does everything that I would ask of a jigsaw, and it is going to do it while still being a really nice tool to use with a lot of premium features on it, and it's going to keep the weight down a little bit. The weight difference between these tools is over a pound, and so that is something that is noticeable when you're using it. Now, I get that if you don't like having a barrel grip jigsaw, that you're probably going to still stick with going with the M18, but if it's something that you're okay with, I think this tool is certainly good for most people's jigsaw needs and is going to give you a really nice tool to use. And I can tell you that between the two, unless I just have something really demanding to cut, this is probably going to be the only jigsaw that gets used in my shop. So there you have it, the review of the new M12 Fuel jigsaw, comparison to a D-handle M18 Fuel jigsaw. I get they're not the same power level, but hopefully it helped to illustrate the difference between the D-handle and that, and to see how this stacks up to what I'd consider a more heavy-duty jigsaw in terms of power level. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. I'd be happy to get anything answered. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the video. It really does help to support the channel so I can give you more tool reviews like this. Thank you as always for the support. At this time of year, happy holidays, and until next time, I'll catch you on Tinker with Tools.